High above the smuggler's moon, Nar Shaddaa, we are live tonight from the Outer Rim in what is another Star Wars Squadrons news video. And Hall, I need you to strap yourself in real tight, lock those S-foils in attack position because we've got 5 amazing topics for you tonight. We are talking gameplay footage, a ton of new gameplay footage of Squadrons launched this week on the internet. We'll get into all that. We're going to be talking about the AWing Advantage. Yes, there was a publication on an Australian news site that talked all about the AWing with Ian Fraser. We have flagships. We're going to be getting into a little bit with flagships and some cool interactions you can see during fleet battles. We've got contrails, a very divisive topic within the community right now. And then we're lastly going to talk about future updates. Can this game possibly see a future update? You guys ready for all this goodness and fun? Let's hit it. As always, pilots, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all the latest Star Wars Squadrons news. And a big celebration this week, guys. We hit partner on Twitch. We started back in January, really committing to 5 nights a week. Set schedule, lots of fun, lots of Star Wars games. And you can guarantee that Star Wars Squadron is going to be a mainstay on the Twitch channel when it comes out on October 2nd. Okay, guys, let's get things started off with gameplay footage. And what you're seeing here in the footage that I have was provided by my man Cubs, my co-host on Rogue Actions, who was actually invited to participate in the private build that took place last weekend. So big thank you to Cubs for sending his footage over and allowing me to use it. But anyways, I watched all the footage and I watched a lot of the different people that had put out content around the private test. And it looked all very promising. I can't tell you guys how excited I am. I've got 3 kind of main concerns here and 3 or 4, things I just love based on what I saw. So let's talk about concerns first. I took a look at the customization, and it looked pretty narrow. This is customization around all the different pilots, all the different kind of skins for ships, and some of the different flares that you have in your cockpit. I think that it all looked pretty narrow. I just don't know how much time they're going to spend making that sort of stuff. So it could be a type of thing where you see it once and then, some of those flares actually take up a view of the cockpit. So I could see a lot of people that are very serious about being good in the game would kind of just remove that stuff entirely. So the customization looked pretty narrow. I think a lot of people said that they didn't have the full list of all the customization options in the game yet. Obviously, they want to save some of that stuff for release. And it looked like just a few different races for each faction. Looks pretty underwhelming. So more to come there. Hopefully we get a little bit more stuff in the full game around launch time. Another thing that kind of concerned me here, guys, was in this private test, they had HOTAS, so that's hand on throttle and stick, and VR disabled for this test. So no one was able to test that to see how well that stuff does and whether hands on throttle and stick is going to be the way to go if you're playing on PC. So I was hoping to get some sort of feedback. Obviously, I vested a lot of money in getting the Warthog Thrustmaster, both throttle and stick. So I'm hopeful that those 2 items can go well with this game. And they had HOTAS disabled, so I think everyone was playing on a gamepad during the test or on their mouse and keyboard. The gamepad actually looked like it was going to be just fine. They put the control scheme on Reddit. I'll see if I can grab an image here. And it looked like everything made a lot of sense. Where it was, how you interact with the D-pad, with your engine and shields and lasers. All that seems to make sense, and balancing all that stuff. They had a system of marking things and targets and how the throttle, the pitch, and the yaw, and the roll, how all that worked. It seemed very intuitive and very well thought out for the gamepad. So kind of hoping they had someone test it with HOTAS, but if they do a future test, I would gladly volunteer myself for something like that. Anyways, let's keep it rolling here. Kind of the overarching message I kind of saw from most of the people that tested the game was there is concern that this is a very narrow game. You have dogfighting, which is sort of not really a full-on mode. I mean, it does its thing, but I think there is concern that will this game get tired real quick, considering it's only 6 maps in the fleet battles mode. So that is a little concerning to me. It seemed like everybody which kind of pondered on that question on whether or not it was deep enough. Keep in mind, guys, $40 price tag, a dream game for a lot of people, including myself. So if you're all in with the concept of this, show your support for this game, and maybe we get something full-fledged, a proper, $60 title or live service down the road. Very interesting stuff there. I am just so thrilled that we are getting this $40 game at a minimum. That's just a dream come true. All right, guys, let's talk about the positives I took from all the test footage. And the flight model. Everybody basically said this is the spiritual successor for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. And that is music to my ears. That is the one thing I was super concerned about. A lot of people are talking about practice to get their muscle memory down for when this game goes live, doing things like Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen. Those games use 6 degrees of freedom flight model, and that is something I don't enjoy. And I think it's just a little too much to think about, and I'm not comfortable with the 6 degrees of freedom. If this flies just like those old X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games, I'm going to be right at home. That is what I grew up on. That is what I learned on, and that is what I prefer. So I'm super pumped that that was basically confirmed. The 20-minute matches seems about fine. I think anywhere between 15 and 20-minute matches for fleet battles seems about right. One of my other concerns was that these matches would go on too long. All right, guys, let's talk collisions here, and this is something I picked up on while I was watching everyone's footage, and you can see Cubs bouncing off a bunch of stuff here in this footage he provided me. Obviously, a lot of people under pressure learning how to fly with a limited amount of time. So I would say that I am very happy with the notion that they're not going to penalize you with just outright exploding if you hit something the wrong way or if you clip something just lightly. It'll change your trajectory. It'll damage your ship. These are all things you can recover from and keep within the fight. So very happy to see that it's just not instant death if you collide into something. And the last point I want to cover here on all the gameplay footage was the deep skills gap. A lot of people said, man, there is a lot to learn. And with managing those systems and all the different components, there is going to be a top end of this game. And that is music to my ears because a lot of people, as I mentioned, were worried about the 6 maps and the one, core kind of game mode in fleet battles. I think this is the type of system that gives this an opportunity to have legs for many years to come. I will remind everyone in the hall, games like Counter-Strike were built on just a handful of 2 or 3 maps and just insanely good gameplay. And I believe Star Wars Squadrons has that opportunity as well. All right, guys, let's get into the next topic here, the AWing Advantage. There was an interview done with Australian gamers, AUSgamers.com, with Ian Fraser, and there was a couple of pieces of information that I wanted to pull out of this and bring to light. The first is a quote here that says, you look at players who play RTS games competitively. There's that idea that focus or attention is a resource. Only so much of your brain can do different things. The TIEs, without needing to manage shields, without having a lot of peripheral stuff to see, they're very, very focused. So you have less to deal with. That fact that you have less to deal with is actually a pretty significant win for the players that's in those TIEs. And then it continued on about the VR wheeling AWing pilot that has an awareness edge, but it's a lot to take in. Something like an AWing in VR is the most extreme case of tons of peripheral view. You have the most situational awareness if that's what you want. AWing plus VR is the optimal build, but there's a whole lot you have to process and have running through your brain when you're in that situation. More like being a real pilot. There's a certain skill of filtering and processing that information. And then Ian in the interview goes on to talk about how flimsy the AWing is and that if a TIE were to catch it in its sights, it would be pretty much dead to rights. So interesting stuff here. The trade-off you get with having all that view within that AWing cockpit and the VR headset and the focused gameplay. We've talked a little bit about this before in the past, but it's good to see some actual quotes come out around this notion. And one other amazing thing that I found super interesting in this interview was that they did confirm an AWing in the final moments of a match. If it came down to it, there is a very niche scenario in which the AWing can fly into the bridge of a Star Destroyer, reminiscent of that scene in Return of the Jedi when it flies through the Super Star Destroyer at the end of the movie. So very cool stuff here. They've taken that attention to detail and put it in the game. Hopefully it's a very rare event and doesn't happen where people are constantly spamming it, but I trust Motive to get it right. All right, guys, let's keep it rolling here. We're going to be talking about flagships now. And Jay, the community manager, confirmed this week on Discord that in fleet battles, if 2 flagships actually get close enough to each other, they will begin to fight and duke it out. Very cool stuff here. He says an enemy ship in range of one another will fight. Doesn't matter if they're big or small. It gets really cool when you see two flagships start duking it out. Very interesting stuff here. I imagine this is the sort of thing that comes down to the wire in a very close match, and seeing that all unfold would be pretty amazing. All right, guys, the next one is a pretty quick one here. Just a quick update on the contrails. A lot of the feedback they received based on the initial trailer launch was that the contrails were too much. This is like the little trails coming off the wings of all the different ships. They've since adjusted that. There's an update here from Jay saying, since the gameplay reveal, they've been tweaking the game. As you can well imagine, contrails now only show up when you reach certain speeds and are, in general, much less visible. Thanks for the feedback. So they took that and made the change immediately. Good stuff there. And the last bit of news this week was something that came out of the Star Wars Explained video where he asked about future content, and they basically responded with, there are no plans yet, but never say never. They want to deliver a complete game experience upon release. If the response is good, they might have an update down the line with new content. So buy the game, guys. Let's love it, and we'll get our B-Wing and TIE Defender. So great stuff, everyone. And that about wraps up another Star Wars Squadrons news video. And don't forget, whether you are a spice runner, a blockade buster, or just a pilot looking to fight for the right cause, the Hall wants to fly with you. Come on by the Discord, hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I will see you among the stars.